بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So chapter number 4 concerning the virtues of the Sahaba and their notables, something notable about them. So these are Sahaba, meaning the students of the Prophet ﷺ. And when we say Sahaba, that means the company, right? The companionship, right? It's a concept. Sahaba is a concept, is an idea, like friendship, right? It's called Sahaba. Another word for Sahaba is Sohba, right? The companionship of so and so. So they're called the companionship because they had the companionship of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? So Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, and this tells us what of the importance of Sohba, right? So you have to be with ulama. You have to be with righteous people. You have to be with these people. Okay? YouTube is fantastic. Online is fantastic. But being physically with righteous people is very, very, very important. Because there is a tangible difference, right? Tangible difference. And so it's very, very important to travel and seek out righteous people because soon there will be no righteous people left. So it says وعن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال لا تسبوا أصحابي فإن أحدكم لو أنفق مثل أحد ذهبا ما أدرك مد أحدهم ولا نصيفه. So Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, he said that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, do not insult my companions. Don't criticize them. Don't say anything bad about them. Why? Because you have no idea how great they are in Allah's eyes, and you have no idea how much what they have done for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if one of you were to give in charity a whole mountain of gold, like Mount Uhud in gold in charity, that could not even reach a single hand scoop of gold if that they gave, or even half of it. So you can't even reach their level. You want to, it's not possible. And so they are way great, they're far beyond your level of even criticizing. Don't even think about it. وعن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لأبي بكر وعمر هذان سيدا كهول أهل الجنة من الأولين والآخرين أولين والآخرين إلا النبيين والمرسلين. So Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, he said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said regarding Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Umar, said these are the two masters of the kuhul, of the elders in paradise, the first and last of people, right? With the exception of the prophets and messengers. So if you took the prophets and messengers, but the next level beneath them are Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Umar. وعن أنس رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال أرحم أمتي بأمتي أبو بكر وأشدهم في أمر الله عمر وأصدقهم حياء عثمان وأقرأهم لكتاب الله أبي بن كعب وأفرضهم زيد بن ثابت وأعلمهم بالحلال والحرام معاذ بن جبل ألا ولكل أمة أمينا وإن أمين هذه الأمة أبو عبيدة تبن الجراح. Anas ibn Malik, narrating the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, said, the most merciful, the person who has most care and concern for my ummah is Abu Bakr. And the firmest of them in the commands of Allah is Sayyidina Umar. And the most modest of them is Sayyidina Uthman. And the best reciter of the Book of Allah is Ubay ibn Ka'b. And the most knowledge of them in inheritance is Zayd ibn Thabit. Right? And that's why Imam Shafi'i and Imam Malik, they generally follow Imam Zayd ibn Thabit's fatwas on inheritance and not Abdullah Mas'ud. Whereas the Hanafis follow Abdullah Mas'ud. The most knowledgeable of them about the permissible and impermissible halal and haram is Mu'adh ibn Jabal. Listen, truly in every ummah, there is a trustee, someone you can rely on. And the trustee of this ummah is Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah. Right? And so these people are the greatest of the greatest of creation reality, right? If you after the prophets. وعن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال آية المنافق بغض الأنصار وآية المؤمن حب الأنصار. Says Anas ibn Malik said that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said the sign of a hypocrite, of a fake Muslim, is that he hates the Ansar. Right? There's somebody who he knows was one of those people who received the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم or received the other Muhajirin who left Mecca, and he hates them. That's a sign that this person is not a real Muslim. And a sign of that you're a believer is that you love the Ansar. Why is this important? Because what we find in history is that after, at the time of Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Uthman, Sayyidina Ali, there's a huge fitna. Right? After the Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidina Muawiyah, there's a huge fitna. And we saw Sahaba fighting each other. And we see things in history that sound confusing. So say, don't worry about what happened. Not a big deal. Yeah, things happened and you can learn a number of things from it. But have husn done of all of these people. Doesn't matter which side they're on. Those who fought, those who didn't fight, they're on this side, they're on that side. Don't worry about that. We're talking about people who are somebody who is above, who they didn't get 100% in the test, or 200%. They got 2,000% in the test, and you're wondering whether or not they went down a notch, right? It's not a big deal. Right? So that the idea that some of them are bad people, right? You need to know which bad Sahaba there were, or which that's meaningless. All the Sahaba were unbelievably amazing people. And then the genuine merit of this nation. What does it mean to be of this nation? The general merit. Finish that hadith. عن ثوبان رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تزال طائفة من أمتي ظاهرين على الحق لا يضرهم من خذلهم حتى يأتي أمر الله وهم كذلك. So Thawban narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, there will always be a group in my ummah clearly upon the truth. So is it possible that the whole ummah has got it wrong? Listen, guys, we totally understand this whole LGBTQ plus thing. Listen, guys, we totally misunderstood gender roles. We totally understood hijab. We totally understood money. We've totally understood rituals. You know, when the Prophet told us to pray 5 times a day, it actually meant, focus on Allah in 5 different ways at different times in your life. Is that possible? No, it's not. So it's not possible that the whole ummah has been wrong, because there's always will be somebody that is right. There's always be at least some people in the ummah who are doing what is 100% right. So therefore, if they all agree on something, then that must be right. Because if it were not right, then there would no longer be somebody who's doing what is right. Whoever disgraces them will not harm them until the command of Allah will come while they are upon that. Right? So there was always, this is in contradistinction to previous nations. Previous nations continued and then gone. There's no longer anybody on the right path anymore. Knowledge was lifted, religion was lifted, and it's just confusion. Whereas in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined that Islam will last till the end of time. And there will always be somebody who is right. عن أبي بن كعب رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال بشر هذه الأمة بالسناء والرفعة والنصرة والتمكين في الأرض. So there isn't supposed to be a space here, by the way. So wow, it has no space. ومن عمل منهم عمل الآخرة للدنيا لم يكن له في الآخرة من نصيب. So Ubay ibn Ka'b said, the Messenger of Allah said, give glad tidings to this ummah of dignity, greatness, and Allah's glory and authority on earth, i.e., you will become a superpower. The Muslims were a superpower. Okay? However, whoever amongst you does the deeds of the hereafter, such as jihad, mashallah, you fought in jihad. Why did you go fight in jihad? But you did it for the dunya. MashaAllah, you wrote a whole book on medicine. Wow, so useful. But what did you do that for? Why did you do that for the dunya? You wrote a book on fiqh, right? So you were part of this Islamic great golden age. But you did it for what reason? Right? So it's very important to understand the Islamic civilization is not amazing buildings like the Hamra. It is not amazing things like a lion clock that can do these things. It's not the fact that Muslims added things to science. That is something totally secondary. The miracle of this ummah are the salihin, the righteous people, people who had hearts that were like they weren't like stars, they were like galaxies. That's the achievement, right? This ikhlas, sincerity, amazing people, as opposed to, wow, Muslims were so amazing. Look, they invented this. That's true, right? It's true, and it's something that's hidden, and it's true, it's important, right? And it's part of our deen, part of the world, etc. But that's something that's kind of accidental, right? As opposed to something that's essential to your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So yes, Allah's gonna give you these things. Allah's gonna establish you on the earth, but you might not have the reward that other people have, right? Because you didn't do it for the sake of Allah. عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال مثل أمتي مثل المطر لا يدرى أوله خير من آخره. So Anas ibn Malik narrated said the Prophet ﷺ said the comparison, the way you can kind of compare my ummah is like rain. You don't know whether its former is better than its latter. No, no, so things look things like they're going down, but then they go up, and then they go down, and then they go up. You don't really know, is it going to be better at the beginning or end? But generally speaking, the Prophet ﷺ, you mentioned that things will go down, but there are certain ups at different stages, right? Mughal India, wow, amazing. Lots of problems, but amazing period of Islamic history, scholarship, righteous people, amazing people. وعن عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال المرء مع من أحب. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud said the Prophet ﷺ said a person will be with whom they love. If you love righteous people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise you among those people, inshallah ta'ala. Chapter number 6, Pillars of Islam, the branches of faith and what Allah has prepared for believers. عن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال بني الإسلام على 5 شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة وحج البيت وصوم رمضان. We said, Abdullah ibn Umar narrates the Prophet ﷺ said, the building of Islam has been based on 5 things. Not Islam is 5 things, but the building, this thing that you're trying to build, which is your deen and your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is built on 5 things. That you publicly testify that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. So we have to understand this is a public, outward thing. Iman is between you and Allah. I know the truth and I accept it. As opposed to, I know the truth, I accept the truth, and I publicly testify it. And establishing the prayer, meaning you pray properly, and you pray regularly, and you pray in a group prayer when possible, and you pay zakat, and you perform the hajj, and you fast Ramadan. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال الإيمان بضع وسبعون شعبة أو بضع وستون شعبة فأفضلها قول لا إله إلا الله وأدناها إماتة الأذى عن الطريق والحياء شعبة من الإيمان. So Abu Hurairah narrates the Prophet ﷺ said, Iman consists of 77 or 76 branches. So you can translate that as 77 or 70 odd. Right? 70 odd, that's kind of a word, right? 70 odd men, right? Meaning 73, 74, 75, something like that. Its most virtuous is saying, right, and feeling and internalizing La ilaha illallah. There is no God, there's no power, there's no goal, there's no cause, there's no anything apart from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. While its lowest level is to remove harm from the path. Right? So one is a spiritual thing and one is a physical thing. And haya is a branch of Iman. Right? So it has lots and lots of ways that it branches out. Okay, and it grows. So it's something that is growing. And it's something that can get sick and something that can grow. It is not, I'm a Muslim, that's it. Right? وعن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى أكون أحب إليه من ولده ووالده والناس أجمعين. Anas ibn Malik, he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, none of you has perfect iman until I am more beloved to him than his children, his parents, and all humanity. You love the Prophet ﷺ more than anybody else. If you said the Prophet ﷺ is going to suffer something, would you prefer to suffer in his place? You say, yes, I would. And what about your child? Yes, I would prefer my child suffer that pain as opposed to Prophet ﷺ, because I love him so much, and I love his way more than any other way. Right. وعن سفيان بن عبد الله الثقفي رضي الله عنه قال قلت يا رسول الله قل لي في الإسلام قولا لا أسأل عنه أحدا بعدك قال قل آمنت بالله ثم استقم. And Sufyan Abu Abdullah al-Thaqafi, he said, I said, O Messenger of Allah, tell me something about Islam whereby I will not need to ask anyone after you ever again. He said, say and realize that I have hereby believed in Allah. I now believe in Allah. And then remain steadfast on that. Right? So you get into that zone and stay in that zone. Again, if you come out of that zone, then get back into that zone and work on being in that zone. Right? The zone of Iman. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إن الله لا ينظر إلى صوركم وأموالكم ولكن ينظر إلى قلوبكم وأعمالكم. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrates the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, truly Allah does not look at your outward appearances. He does not care what you look like, and what you look like is totally irrelevant. That is not you. Right? That is not you. That's like being really upset because the next door neighbor's car has a flat tire, and you feel people will judge you because of your next door neighbor's car. It's not even you. It's not your car. Right? Do you feel self-conscious about because a cat fell off a chair in someone else's house? I don't identify with the cat. What you're talking about, right? Sure, the cat feels self-conscious. The cat falls off. They have quite a lot of pride, cats, right? They fall off. They kind of feel embarrassed. Like, do you feel embarrassed that something other than you, that has nothing to do with you, right? So your image, your height that's not even you. Right? How much money you have, that's not you. ولكن ينظر إلى قلوبكم وأعمالكم. But he looks at your hearts. He looks at your works. That's what's relevant. What are you doing? How is the state of your heart? That is your balance. That is your bank balance. That is your everything. Everything else is totally irrelevant. How do you feel towards other people? How do you feel towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What are you doing? Right? So how do you know if Allah loves you? Because you love Allah. How do you know if Allah loves you? See what He's engaging you in. He's engaging in riba. He's wasting your time on social media. He's engaging in the haram. He's saying, get out of here. I'm not interested in you. Please go away. Please, I don't want to talk to you. Right? He's engaging you in dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's connecting with you in your work, in your studies, in your life, in your conversations with people. Right? That means you're close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Really, Allah does not care. I could say He does not look or does not care about how you look and how much money you have. Rather, He looks at your heart and deeds. عن عبد الله بن عباس رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال اغتنم خمسا قبل خمس شبابك قبل هرمك وصحتك قبل سقمك وغناك قبل فقرك وفراغك قبل شغلك وحياتك قبل موتك. He said, Ibn Abbas رضي الله عنه, he said that Prophet ﷺ said, take advantage of 5 things before 5 other things. Your youth before you get old and you can't have the strength to do what you used to do. Your health before you get sick. Your wealth before you get poor. Right? You have money now, do something now, because soon you're going to be poor, you're not going to be able to do it. Right? Go on Hajj as soon as possible. Right? Free your time before you get busy. This is a killer. Right? And so the shaitan gets us on 2 things. Either you waste your time generally, you waste your time, you're doing nothing. Or he gets you to do something really, really important, but it's not really, 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 really important. It's like, man, how did he get me? Right? How did he get me? So you're doing something important. What you were doing is good and beautiful and noble. or there's something that is more unbeautiful and noble. It's like, oh, right? And so this is a killer. This is a real killer. That you could have done something better. May Allah forgive us and give us, and this is all, what does it come down? It comes down to love. Simple as that. If you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it hurts you not to do the things that Allah loves the most. And so you are always engaged in the things that Allah loves the most, be it going to sleep and praying later, be it leaving a sunnah, be it doing Quran because you have that 2 minutes to do Quran, be it saying sorry to somebody because you insulted them, or because you didn't insult them, just because it's good akhlaq, right? And so whatever it is, it's there. And your life before your death, because you don't have time. So procrastination, this is a huge thing. Somebody asked Imam Ghazali, they said, Imam Ghazali, please give me some advice. He said, I'm not somebody to give you any advice. This is a problem that I have myself. He says this whole issue that it's okay, I have time. It's like a disease I can't get rid of. I don't know what to do. And I've tried to talk myself in 50,000 different ways. I just can't do it. Right? But again, if you follow the way of love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, work on love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and great gratitude, then you just naturally love those things and things become natural. You naturally are not interested in wasting time because it just doesn't fit, right? It doesn't fit, right? Romeo and Juliet are at a party and everyone's talking. They only care about each other. Romeo leaves the room, Juliet's going to follow, right? It doesn't matter if you get hungry. It doesn't matter if you get thirsty. It doesn't matter if you get tired. It's irrelevant. It's like have something to talk. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the same thing. Just pulls, right? Love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala pulls you naturally, effortlessly into the right thing. But love of the dunya naturally and effortlessly pulls you into the wrong thing. So that's the fight. Love of Allah, love of the dunya. May Allah protect us. عن عبد الله بن عباس رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس الصحة والفراغ. Abdullah ibn Abbas, narrating the Messenger of Allah said, two blessings, there are two blessings that many people are cheated out of. Are health and free time. So you sell it for cheap. You're healthy. He's like, yeah, I know. He said, bro, you're healthy. He's like, I know. It's a big deal. So you can do things. Yeah, I know I can do things. What are you trying to say? But you're not doing enough. So, oh, subhanAllah, really? I thought I was being pretty serious about my deeds. Like, no, you're not. You could do way more. Really, I didn't realize. Right? I didn't realize that. So yes, that's the reality. You are not doing as much as you could do. There's way more. There's so much more you could do. For example, dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, I have to drive. I say, yeah, but who's stopping you making dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I have to cook. I have to clean. I have to find out what's going on with these kids. I have to do this. No one's stopping you making dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Doesn't take any time. It doesn't take time away from anything. Turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in an exam, turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a problem, that doesn't take any time. But we don't use it. Like subhanAllah, and you can't go back. You can't go back and add Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to that argument that you were in. You can't go back and add Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to your response to that thing when Allah wasn't there. You can't go back. It's possible. You said it and you sold it for nothing. May Allah forgive us. And right, this is like the biggest pain ever. Well, faragh, right? You had that health, but you're not using it, and you had that free time. So what do you mean? I don't have free time. It's like, do you have kids? Yes. No. Then you you have so much free time. You don't have kids. You have so much you have unlimited free time then compared to somebody who has kids. You have ridiculous amount of free time. So much free time. You can do so much, right? But we don't. You don't value these things until they're gone, right? And then there's no way to ever get them back ever again. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لن ينجي أحدكم منكم عمله قال رجل ولا إياك يا رسول الله قال ولا إياي إلا أن يتغمدني الله منه برحمة ولكن سددوا. So Abu Hurairah narrates the Prophet ﷺ said, none of you will attain salvation by his deeds. They said, oh, not even you, a messenger of Allah? And he said, no, not even me. So what does that mean then? He says, try 120%, but don't rely on your results. So there's a big difference between trying 100% to save yourself from the hellfire and thinking that your efforts will save you from the hellfire. They're two different things, right? We do good deeds just out of adab. It's just as a mean, as a thing that to do. You try 100%. But hoping that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward one in spite of one's flea bittenness, right? You look at yourself and say, totally worthless, not useful, uninteresting. I tried my best, or I tried at least I tried to try my best. It was totally worthless and compared to what is actually due there. But it doesn't matter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is my buddy. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will buy my worthless merchandise for a gazillion times its value. Right? Or just throw it away and just give me as sadaqah, right? So we do not say, you don't keep judging yourself and saying, well, I think I'm at this level of paradise, or I'm at that level of paradise, or I'm in this level of hell, or that level of hell. You don't do any of those things. You do everything you can and throw it all out of the window and say, oh Allah, please just give me the rank of the highest people to you ever, just because of who you are. Just because you're who you are. So he says, none of you will do that unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala envelops me in his mercy, or envelops me with some unfathomable mercy. Regardless, be balanced in word and deed, right? Or keep trying keep trying, right? Keep doing what is right. Keep doing what is right. But when you go do wrong, don't lose hope. And when you do right, don't increase in hope. Okay? Don't do that. Okay? Because that's got nothing to do with anything. Your kids leave Islam. Your kids are not religious. You do what is right, you don't do what is right. Okay? Okay. وعن عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الله عز وجل. He says that there is no obeying, there's no onus, there's no obligation or due obedience to a created being, husband, wife, authority, peer pressure, if it entails disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So there's no meaning to those things. So if the group wants you to do something wrong, irrelevant, your husband wants you to do something wrong, your culture says to do something wrong, it's just it doesn't mean anything. And unfortunately, sometimes we have very cultural people that want us to do crazy stuff, and it's like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. And they'll label you as a bad person. So, okay, if it's haram according to all form of dhahib, I'm not going to do it. Jazakumullah khair. End of story. وعن أبي أمامة الباهلي رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من سرته حسنته وساءته سيئته فهو مؤمن. So Abu Umama al-Bahili, he said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever is pleased by their good deeds, not that I'm pleased with my good deeds because I'm proud, but I'm really happy that Allah destined that I did this good deed. May Allah, I love Allah for doing that, right? And when I see bad things, it really hurts me that I've messed up. Like you go back into your life and like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whole list, and it hurts you when it remembers those things. That's a sign of Iman. So don't give up hope. Don't say I'm such a bad person. Say, well, are you sad about the past? So yeah. As opposed to, yeah, it was pretty good when I did that, right? Say, no, it hurts me that I did those mistakes. It hurts me. Or that I'm doing these mistakes. It hurts me. Right? And I'm happy when I do what is right. And thank Allah for your good deeds. This is a sign of Iman. I.e., you are on the right direction. You are working. As opposed to, you're proud about, for example, you're so popular for doing something haram. It was so funny. A funny joke. You shared something, everyone's like patting you on the back for something. It's like, it was a haram joke. It was riba. That was this, that was that. It's like, it's not Iman. May Allah protect us. وعن رجل من أهل البادية عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إنك لن تدع شيئا اتقاء الله عز وجل إلا أعطاك الله خيرا منه. This is a man from the desert narrated that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said, truly you will never do you abandon something for the sake of Allah. Right? You said, I'm not going to do this. Why? It's haram. But it's so hard now. Like, what am I supposed to do? I left my job, or I left this contract I was going to do, or left this relationship, or left that group, or left whatever it is, left off saying those words, or whatever it is. Lost that opportunity to make money or to make it up, whatever it is. Allah illa a'taaku Allahu khayran minh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you something better than that. So you never lose. There's no actual sacrifice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just wants you to win, as opposed to lose. So you don't actually have to let go of anything. You just have to hold. It's like the kid has candy in his hand, and you're trying to open it for him. He won't let go. It's like I'm trying to open the candy for you, and the kid's crying like, "Don't touch it, it's mine." I was like, I'm trying to open it for you so you can actually eat it, and you're like, I can't, don't want to do that, right? So that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing. He's saying, do this and don't do this. He's telling you, let me actually open the door to happiness for you, and you're like, no, I don't want to, right? Okay, عن سهل بن ساعد الساعدي رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إنما الأعمال بالخواتيم. So Sahl ibn Sa'di, he narrates in the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, actions are judged by their ends. Now that's a really interesting hadith because isn't that in stark contrast with another hadith that says actions are only by their intentions? So how does that work? How does that work? I thought an action is judged by its intentions, which is the thing that came before it, not the thing that comes after it. So what is the answer? Is the net result of your life is judged on how you end. So they say, well, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, I went on Hajj, I went on Umrah, I made Tawbah, and it's a, well, let's see. Let's see how you are tomorrow. So yes, when you are doing an action, stop and say, why am I doing this action? Because the value of that action with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is only judged on why you did it. But at the same time, don't rest on your laurels and said, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, I made a lot of good decisions in my life. I changed this and I changed that and I changed this. Okay, fine. Well, let's see how you are tomorrow. Let's see how you are tomorrow. So don't become self-confident and have a rest like the hare in the story of the right is rather, do you know, put your hand up if you know you're going to go to paradise. I can't do that. Okay, get on with it. Right, seriously get on with it because you don't know how you're going to end. It may well be that you did something very sincere. And then that sincerity made you self-confident. And then you began to slack and slack and slacken and slacken and slacken. And then where are you now? And they leave the deen totally. And so yes, you have done a deed, but you have wasted that total deed. How? By leaving the deen. So how do you know you're going to die in Iman? You don't know you're going to die in Iman. And so unwatun la sulha fiha, a war of attrition, that in which there is no giving up. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال حفت الجنة بالمكاره وحفت النار بالشهوات. He said, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, paradise is surrounded by difficulties, while the hellfire is surrounded by lusts and desires. So it's very, very easy to do things that take you to hellfire because it's very tempting to do those things. And it's very easy and it's very difficult to do what is right because we don't want to do what is right. It's very hard to apologize to people. Why would I want to say sorry? It's not my fault. Why would I want to give back the money, even though there's a debate whether I owe it or not, and there's a debate whether or not it's even, why would I do that? It's kind of embarrassing. Why want to embarrass myself? Right? There's lots of things that my nafs does not like, my ego does not like, and just wants to do this. So then why would I do those things? Right? Why would I pray in public? Why would I say what is right when everyone else is saying what is wrong? Right? Why would I go against the grain? It's hard. Right? Why would I do what is right? There's also things that are more gratifying. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال الله عز وجل أعددت لعبادي الصالحين ما لا عين رأت ولا أذن سمعت ولا خطر على قلب بشر. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrates the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I have prepared for my righteous servants that which no eye has ever seen, nor ear ever heard, and has never crossed the heart of a human being. You couldn't understand how amazing paradise is. There are certain descriptions of it in the Quran and Hadith that help us understand some things of it, but it's kind of like, you know, explaining a computer to, or explaining an iPhone to, or AI to like Aristotle. Like, how's he even going to understand what you're talking about, really? وعن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إن في الجنة لشجرة يسير الراكب في ظلها 100 عام لا يقطعها. Indeed, in paradise there is a tree that is so big that a horseback rider would to ride under that shade of that tree for 100 years, he would still not cross that tree. Right? And then prayer and things related to it. عن أبي أمامة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال اتقوا الله ربكم وصلوا خمسكم وصوموا شهركم وأدوا زكاة أموالكم وأطيعوا ذا أمركم تدخلوا جنة ربكم. So Abu Umama al-Bahili, narrated the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said, fear your Allah, your Lord, pray your 5 prayers, fast in the month of Ramadan, pay zakat from your wealth, and obey your ruler, the one who's in charge of you, and you will enter the paradise of your Lord. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إن أول ما يحاسبه به العبد يوم القيامة من عمله صلاته. The first thing, he said, indeed, the very first thing that you'll be judged about on Judgment Day will be your prayer. Right? And another version of the hadith mentions, and then everything will be judged based on that, like based on your grade in prayer. Right? So therefore, qada, qada, qada. Number one thing to worry about in life. Right? So many people worry about other things. This or that. It's like, no, no, no. Have you prayed every single prayer since time reached puberty? No, sir. Okay, then please let's get that going, because that's the first thing you'll be asked. You will be not asked about you know, many things. So a man, you're going to be asked about putting food on the table, protecting your children and wife from hellfire. That's what you're asked about. So as long as you're making enough money to pay rent and to pay your basic rent and to live in a basic house that's good enough for everybody to just about survive, and then you should dedicate your life to making things up, because you don't know when you're going to die. That's the first question you're going to be asked. And for a woman, what do you have to do? Basic things for kids, whatever, and that's about it, right? So a woman, for example, she has qadas to make up. She says, well, I was working. Or why are you working? Oh, my husband's sick. I have to look after him. Okay, sure. That makes sense. She's working 12 hours a day because her husband is sick and she can't work. Okay, fine. But otherwise, what are you doing? Like, you don't need to work. Oh, but I have this or I have that. It's like, that's not your priority, right? So shaitan has come to you and made you do an amazing thing, which is really, really good, instead of something that's more important, right? Which is your qada prayers. Number one thing, qada prayers, right? And a huge blessing, for example, for someone who's young, you know, like you're young, you find out about the halal and haram, you find out about the prayers, and you're like, oh, you know, let's get it done. When I'm, you know, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25. It's like, okay, I'm 40, 45, 50, 55. It's like, what do you, so you just have to get on with it. It's very, very hard. 30 years of prayers to make up. It's ridiculous. Well, at least start and say, oh Allah, I tried. I tried to repair every single thing I could. Right? I tried to make up all those years. And most people don't bother. Most people aren't just interested. So then you see, like, oh, this person seems righteous. And you see all these people who seem righteous, but they're not righteous because they're not focused on the priorities. It doesn't make any sense. Right? That doesn't make any sense. It's like the guy's having a conversation with his wife, and his wife said, listen, it's really important to me that you do the following. It's really important to me that, for example, you whatever, don't leave your socks on the floor. Like, it's really, really important to me. Like, it means a lot to me. Like, it really hurts me emotionally when you leave your socks on the floor. So he leaves his socks on the floor and he brings her flowers. And he says nice things to her. That's not what I want, though. I don't want your flowers. Your flowers are great, but But it means more to me, this. So that's called language of love, right? Love languages. Same thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has love languages. Like these are the things that I care about. These are things that I don't care about as much. So I want you to do those things. Please do them. And don't worry about something else that is not a priority. Right? So the shaitan are always trying to get us to do lots of really good things that are not really, really, really good. To waste our time. Right? Let's share a hadith on social media. Okay. Is that your priority? No. Okay, then why are you doing it? But it's good. Yeah, I know it's good. I didn't say it's not good. I'm just saying that's not your priority. Right? وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إن أمتي يأتون يوم القيامة غرا محجلين من أثر الوضوء فمن استطاع منكم أن يطيل غرته فليفعل. And Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he said, truly my ummah will appear on the day of rising with their limbs shining like a ghurr al-muhajjalin. These are beautiful horses with white noses or like a white line down their forehead and with white, the bottom of their legs is white. That's called ghurr al-muhajjalin. So they have to shine on their face from wudu and they shine on their arms and feet from wudu. And whoever is able to extend his brightness should do so. According to the Shafis, this means make wudu and spread the wudu, wash as far as you can with your arm up to your shoulders and up to your knees. Wash up to your knees, the sunnah, right? According to at least the Malikis, I think Hanafis as well, meaning make wudu frequently, and right, whoever can make wudu frequently, make it long as in frequently make wudu, not go beyond the normal limits that you mentioned. So wudu is a very important thing, right? Continually having wudu as much as possible. That whenever you break wudu, you make wudu. That's as soon as all things being equal is very important. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال لولا أن أشق على أمتي لأمرتهم عند كل صلاة بوضوء ومع كل وضوء بسواك. And he says, were it not that it would be difficult for my nation, I would tell them to make wudu every single time they pray a Fard prayer. Every single time they pray a prayer, go make wudu, even if you have wudu. And that every single time they make wudu, to use siwak. Right? And that's something that we should all be doing. وعن عقبة بن عامر رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال ما منكم من أحد يتوضأ فيسبغ الوضوء ثم يقول أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله إلا فتحت له أبواب الجنة الثمانية يدخل من أيها شاء. Uqbat ibn Amir writes that the Prophet ﷺ said, none of you performs wudu and does it properly. So you study the fiqh of wudu. This is how you make wudu, you do it properly. Then says, I testify that there is no God but Allah and that Muhammad is a slave and messenger. Right? Slave here, not servant. Slave and messenger. Except that the 8 doors of paradise are flung open for him and he can enter them whichever he wishes, i.e. on Judgment Day. وعن عقبة بن عامر رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال ما من مسلم يتوضأ فيحسن وضوءه ثم يقوم فيصلي ركعتين مقبل عليهما بقلبه ووجهه إلا وجبت له الجنة. Right? Uqbat ibn Amr, he said every single Muslim, not a single Muslim does the following, right? Every single Muslim, let's say, performs wudu and performs it properly, focused. It's a ritual, do it properly. And then stands and prays even 2 rakats, as an example, 2 rakats of prayer with his heart and his mind focused. Right here it says, مُقْبِلٌ عَلَيْهَا بِقَلْبِهِ وَوَجْهِهِ, his face. Right, so I'm not sure how he translates it as heart and mind. Right, so outwardly you're facing the right direction, and inwardly you're facing the direction. You're actually praying. إِلَّا وَجَبَتْ لَهُ الْجَنَّةِ. Say that paradise becomes guaranteed for him. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So notice the qualitative side. We have to focus on the quality of wudu and the quality of our worship and not on the quantity. قال أحب البلاد إلى الله مساجدها وأبغض البلاد إلى الله أسواقها. Abu Hurairah writes, the Messenger of Allah said, the most beloved places to Allah are the masajid, while the most hated of places to Allah are the marketplaces, right? So we walk around with a marketplace in our pocket. It's called what? It's called a smartphone. And then we sit and we open a market phone at home, which is called a screen. The point of the internet is to make money. It is a marketplace. That's why it I guess sends us advertisements. No, nobody puts in millions and trillions of dollars for nothing. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Google is free because you are the price. Facebook is free because you are the price. WhatsApp is free because you are the price. Right? And so these things are the most hated of places to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should spend as little time as possible on the screen, as little time as possible with our phone, as much possible in places of worship and doing worship. Right? Cut these things out of our lives. We don't need them as a bare minimum. Right? The whole point of the way that television works is through advertisements. It's a marketplace. So it's for, right? If it's not a marketplace to buy things, it's a marketplace for hellfire, which is obviously worse, right? So we have to understand that that is the point of an iPhone. A smartphone is there. It is a marketplace. Therefore, it is the most hated of places to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not there for anybody's benefit. Nobody said, I want to entertain people for the sake of entertaining them. Nobody said, I really want to help people communicate. That's ridiculous. Right? Nobody's going to do that. وعن عثمان بن عفان رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من بنى مسجدا لله تعالى بنى الله له بيتا في الجنة. It says whoever builds a mosque for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will build for him a house in paradise. وعن أبي الدرداء رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إن الله عز وجل ضمن لمن كانت المساجد بيته الأمنة والجواز على الصراط يوم القيامة. So Abu Darda narrates that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, indeed, Allah guarantees for the one who made the masajid his home, he spends a lot of time in the mosque, safety and safe passage over the bridge on Judgment Day. So it says here, Bazzar's Kashf al-Astar. Imam al-Bazzar has, his book is not called, it's Musnad al-Bazzar. Right? It's called al-Bahr al-Zakhar, Musnad al-Bazzar. Kashf al-Astar is a kind of a summary or a kind of edition of it. So here, they're not the same book. Right? One is a much later book based on the Bazzar's book. So it's not. So it seems, Allahu Alam, that the author, the original author, did not do the what's called takhrij, doesn't mention his references. Right? So I don't need to. It's not really that important. Right? And then the translator has added them. Right? But that's not correct. Bazzar's Kashf, he doesn't have a book called, right, Kashf al-Astar. Right? It's probably Ibn Hajar, I can't remember who it is, Ibn Hajar al-Haytami or Haytham, or I don't know. But Bazzar, his book is something else. So Bazzar that's a primary source on Hadith, right? Like an original text on Hadith. He's narrating in the end of the third century, fourth century, with his chain branches back to Prophet ﷺ, and showing inconsistencies or showing that a Hadith is whatever the illah in the Hadith. Whereas the Kashf al-Astar is a book based on that. عن بريدة بن الحصيب الأسلمي رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال بشر المشائين في الظلم إلى المساجد بالنور التام يوم القيامة. Buraidah ibn Husayb al-Aslami said that the Prophet ﷺ said, give glad tidings to those who routinely, regularly walk to the mosque in the darkness of their receiving complete light on the Judgment Day. Right? So the fact that they walk to the masjid despite the distance and despite it being dark and despite the difficulty they will have because of the difficulty that they undertook. So the default is we should always be in the masjid, for men specifically, that men should always be in the masjid unless there's something else going on that's more important, such as I'm at work, such as I need to help my kids with my homework, and if I go back and forward, I won't be able to do that because they have to go to sleep in 1 hour, for example. Something like that, but something that's more important. right? But otherwise, like I can't be bothered. That's not an excuse. It's too far, or it's I don't have, when you say I don't have time to do something good, it doesn't, that's what it means is there is something else that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prefers, right? I don't have time to go to Jum'ah means there is something besides Jum'ah that Allah prefers, such as looking after my dying mother who's on a deathbed and she may die, breathe her last at this moment. So therefore, I didn't go to Jum'ah because of that. Or because I was traveling and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to travel because it's for my work or whatever it is, something like that. So that's what you mean. I don't have time means there is something else that's more important, right? You tell a child, I don't have time to talk to you right now, meaning I really value speaking to you right now, but there are other things that Allah wants me to do besides that. And Allah is more important than you. So therefore, I am prioritizing other things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants me to do over this conversation that you want to have with me right now. Right? But otherwise, that doesn't mean anything. I don't have time. What it means is there's something else that's more important. Now, if that's correct, that's fantastic. Otherwise, it's wrong. That's why the fiqh al-awlawiyat is so important. Understanding what does Allah prioritize and then prioritizing what Allah prioritizes, that is very important. Because otherwise you will say, I don't have time when you do have time. Right? You do have time. I don't have time to pray tahajjud. Why? Because I need to work and I'll be tired if I work for tahajjud. Why would you be tired? Because I go to sleep late. Why are you going to sleep late? Because I'm watching TV. Aha. Right? Or because I'm hanging out, or because whatever, right? So because it's lots of things we like. This is the case, right? Where there are other cases like I generally have to do this. I do not have time to pray tahajjud. Why? Because I have a 2-year-old that wakes up regularly at night, and so I have to sleep, and I sleep as late as I can, and therefore I wake up 20 minutes before sunrise and pray fajr, and then go to work. So okay, makes sense. Good job, right? As opposed to I I am I'm not prioritizing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prioritized wants me to prioritize because I love myself more than Allah. And therefore I'm missing out on certain things that I could have done and I should have done, but I didn't do it. Right. So there's nothing wrong. In fact, it's a good thing to do to miss out on something good when there's something else that's better. Why do we buy and sell? We give goods for other goods because the goods that we are giving in our eyes are not as good as the ones we're getting. Otherwise, we wouldn't exchange it, would we? Somebody who has 10 phones, they sell a phone because the phone is not as important as $100 or $200 or $800, whatever it is they're selling it as. That's how we exchange things. That's what we do, right? We exchange something that's less for something that's more, right? But it all comes down to understanding the value of things in Allah's eyes and then prioritizing in that way. But if we don't do that, or we don't follow that, then it's very difficult. And Sufyan al-Thawri said, I've never seen anything as difficult as knowledge and applying it. Like you now know this is exactly the thing that you should be doing at this very moment, but you don't do it. This 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 is the thing. Every single moment, what is it that Allah wants me to do at this moment in time? And then actually doing it. Okay. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من غدا إلى المسجد أو راح أعد الله له في الجنة نزلا كلما غدا أو راح. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrates that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever goes to the masjid in the morning or in the evening, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will prepare for him a lavish reception in paradise every single time he goes or comes. وعن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال صلاة الجماعة أفضل من صلاة الفذ ب27 درجة. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu said the Prophet ﷺ said, praying in a congregation is 70 times more virtuous than salat performed by oneself. So Imam Muzani, they say that Imam Muzani, when he would miss the prayer in the group masjid, he would come home and pray another, he would pray it and then pray another 26 times to make up what he missed out on. Right? And so, we should always uh the default, when I say there is many cases where there's a non-default, but the default is it is not recommended for a woman to pray in the masjid. Right? A woman should pray at home with her husband or with her family or something like that. That's the default. وعن أنس بن مالك, right, I assuming there's no other benefit for her to pray in the masjid. وعن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يرد الدعاء بين الأذان والإقامة. He said supplications, dua, are not rejected between the azan and the iqamah. Right? So this is a very, very special time to make dua, and we should be making dua at that time. وعن جابر بن عبد الله رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من قال حين يسمع النداء اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آتي محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته إن أحلت له شفاعتي يوم القيامة. Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, he said, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever says when he hears the azan, so the word in English is, by the way, is azan and not adhan. So notice how I didn't even put it in italics, because that is the word in the English dictionary, azan, right? So when we're speaking English, we should say azan. When we're speaking Arabic, we can call it adhan, right? But we shouldn't use the word adhan, because that's not the word in the dictionary, right? Just like, for example, it used to be Moslem, right? Moslem, right? Perhaps that exists still in the dictionary somewhere, but we use the word Muslim. You have to put that in italics. It's not a foreign word. That's English now, right? So mu'azzin and azan, these are English words now. Like kismet, that was his kismet, right? I'm not sure if you write it with an E or a T, but Kismat or MET. That's an English word, which means one's destiny, right? One's kismah, right? What Allah has qasama lahu, has made, but that word is English, right? So you can use it in a poem, you can use it in anything. It's not in italics as a non-English word. It is, it's just an English word. Perhaps we're not familiar with it, or some people are not familiar with it, but it is essentially an English word. So here he uses the word, he hears the azan, right? We shouldn't write the adhan, Adhan, because that's not the English word. O Allah, Lord of this perfect call and the prayer that's about to be established, grant Muhammad the virtuous intercession and grant him the praiseworthy station which you have promised him. He will certainly receive my intercession on Judgment Day. Let's try and finish this chapter. It says, وعن أبي حميد أو أبي أسيد رضي الله عنهما عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إذا دخل أحدكم مسجد فليقل اللهم افتح لي أبواب رحمتك وإذا خرج فليقل اللهم إني أسألك من فضلك. Abu Humayd or Abu Usaid narrates the Prophet ﷺ said, whenever any of you enters the masjid, he should say, "O Allah, open unto me doors of your mercy." When he leaves, he should say, "O Allah, I ask you of your bounty." وعن أبي قتادة السلمي رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال إذا دخل أحدكم مسجدا فليركع ركعتين قبل أن يجلس. Right, Abu Qatada writes that the Prophet ﷺ said, when any of you enters the masjid, he should pray 2 rak'ahs before he sits down. Right? Another version says, let him definitely not sit down. So in the Shafi school, it is makruh to miss this, and we do this even if it's after Asr or even after the Fajr or even if it's whatever time day it is, doesn't matter. And even if the Imam is giving during the khutbah, but when you pray very briefly. Right, so if the Imam is giving the khutbah, you do it very, very briefly. You don't go for a long time at all. Right? Now, the Hanafi position is you do not do that. You do not do Tahiyyat al-Masjid after Fajr. You do not do it or sun is rising, or while the sun is setting, or while the Imam is giving the khutbah. You just sit down. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال الإمام ضامن والمؤذن مؤتمن اللهم أرشد الأئمة واغفر للمؤذنين. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, the Imam is a guarantor. He's liable, i.e., he needs to make sure he's doing a proper job. And the muazzin, right? Notice he put it in italics. And he said, call it to prayer. You don't have to do that because the word is in English muazzin, right? That's what it is, right? So you read somebody talking about British India or British Egypt, and like, yeah, and there was a call of the muezzin. That's what it's called in English, the muezzin, right? Just like there'd be certain words, for example, a word that we're not familiar with. We don't have to be familiar with every single word in English, right? A pannier, you know, and then thereafter he extracted some dry bread from his pannier. Like, what is a pannier? Like, that's not a word that's part of our life, right? It means a bag on the side of a horse or something like that. That's called a pannier. So do I have to put that in italics just because it's uncommon to us, right? Or pasta, do I put that because it's originally not English? No, pasta is pasta, right? So, same thing. So muazzin is the word for English for this thing. You don't have to put it in italics, nor do you have to explain it. Isn't it should be trusted, right? I.e., because he's going to call the adhan for when the prayer time's in. Oh Allah, guide the imams and forgive them muazzins. Right? And for the Hanafis, that's very important because he's carrying your prayer. That's for the Hanafis. Like, you don't recite behind the imam. Basically, like in the Hanafi school, technically speaking, if you just followed the imam and then just finished when he finished, your prayer would technically be valid. Like, he kind of does the whole prayer for you, right? There are certain things you should be doing anyway behind the imam, but generally speaking, like, he is the one who's like praying for you, if that makes sense. For the Shafis, it's not quite like that. We recite in the Shafi school, you recite the Fatiha behind the Imam, and if you didn't do it, it doesn't count. You have to repeat that rak'ah, etc., with certain conditions. It's a slightly different kind of picture. To what extent is the responsibility that he carries, to what extent is that? It's debated. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال لا يزال العبد في صلاة ما كان في مصلاه. Right, that the Prophet ﷺ said, a servant remains in the sacred state of prayer as long as he remains in the place where he prayed. So you sit there and you make dhikr and you make dua. It's a very, very important thing to do. You are still effectively in the prayer. وعن أبي جهيم عبد الله بن الحارث الأنصاري رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال لو يعلم المار بين يدي المصلي ماذا عليه لكان أن يقف 40 خير له من أن يمر بين يديه. Abu Juhaym, Abdullah ibn Harith Ansari, he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, if one of you only knew what great evil he has, or penalty he has incurred and earned by walking in front of somebody who is praying, he would prefer to wait 40, i.e., days or months or years, than walk in front of him. Right? And here, this is why you need to study fiqh. What counts as a sutra? What doesn't count as a sutra? What does it mean to walk in front of? When should you do it? When should you not? We studied that in fiqh. But here's this general idea that this person is praying. There's a sanctity there. You cannot abuse that sanctity. So inshallah, we will continue next week with chapter 8, optional salah and some du'as, inshallah ta'ala. Subhanallah wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.